Welcome, 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 welcome to the Mind Fuck Podcast. Yay! Welcome, 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 my friend. Thank you so much for taking time out to hang out with me. I am uber grateful you're here. My name is wonu Alishe. And sometimes I do go by Amazing Soul. Welcome to the Mind Fuck Podcast. FCK stands for fun, compassion, and kindness. Essentially, on this show, we talk about nervous system regulation, how to build trust between, your brain and your body, in turn, creating internal safety. And also along the way, remembering parts of ourselves that we kind of forgot. So welcome again on the show. Before we get into today's episode, we have like a little tradition where I read a list that I titled Reminders to Being Human. Now, the intention behind reading this every time on the show is to remind myself, but most importantly, remind you also on your journey. All right. Reminders to being human. Have fun along the journey. Show yourself compassion. Be kind to others. Being complex and being simple can hold true in the same breath. Stay curious. Hold space for pauses. Hold space for not knowing. Never underestimate the power of silence. Nature has a lot of wisdom. Pay attention. There is power in we than I. If nothing else makes sense, come back to love. Pain is our greatest teacher. And the very last one, never underestimate your ripple of existence. Yay! Okay, now let's get into the fun part of the show. All right, I want you to picture something simple. It's late at night, you're lying in bed, lights off, phone in your hand, and you just had another conversation that didn't go the way you wanted. Maybe with someone you care about, maybe it ended in silence, maybe it felt tense, maybe you said something and instantly you wished you could take that thing back. And as you stare at the ceiling, there's this quiet thought running in your head. Why does this keep happening to me? Not once, not twice, but in different ways with different people in different situations. But the same feeling, the same ending, the same loop. That's what I want to talk to you about on the podcast today. That moment where life starts to feel like it's repeating itself, even when you're consciously trying to change your life. Because this doesn't just show up in relationships, right? It shows up everywhere. I mean, it shows up when you say you're going to wake up early and somehow you keep hitting the snooze button. You tell yourself you're going to set a boundary, but when the moment really comes, you go quiet. You decide this time I would do it differently. But somehow you find yourself doing the exact same thing. And I'll tell you, it's frustrating because you're not unaware. I mean, you see the pattern, you feel the pattern, you want to change the pattern, but something keeps pulling you back into those same situations. Now, I remember going through the same thing in a very real way, not just once, but over and over and over again, especially in my personal relationship. There was a time in my life where I kept attracting the same kind of dynamic. Different person, same feeling. At first, it will feel exciting. There was connection, there was depth, and there was that this feeling is familiar. But slowly, the same familiar feeling will turn into something else. I will start overthinking, reading into messages, feeling unsure of myself, feeling like I had to adjust myself to keep the connection alive. And every time the relationship ended, I would sit there thinking to myself, damn, how did I end up here again? And for a very long time in my life, I made it about the other person. I would say things like, they probably weren't ready, they couldn't meet me where I was, or they didn't communicate properly. While some of that was true in the past, it didn't explain the reason why I kept repeating the same pattern in relationships, right? Because when something keeps repeating, there's usually something deeper going on, my friend. Not in a complicated way, but in a very real human way. Let's bring it back to something simple. Imagine this. You wake up in the morning, your alarm goes off. Before you even set up, your body already feels a little tense. I mean, your shoulders are tight, your chest feels slightly heavy, and your mind is already thinking about the day. Nothing has happened yet, but your body is already in a familiar state, right? And without realizing it, you start moving through your day from that sensation, from that place. You respond to messages a certain way, you interpret people's tone a certain way, you make decisions from that same feeling you had when you woke up in the morning. So even if your intention is to do something different, your starting point hasn't changed. And that was something I had to learn the very hard way on my journey, right? There was a moment in my life, I remember sitting in the car after an interaction that didn't feel good. I didn't even turn the engine of the car on. I just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, and I could feel the sensation in my chest. It was tight, it was heavy, it was familiar, right? And instead of jumping into my phone or distracting myself, I just stayed there, right? And I remember saying to myself, something about this feeling feels the same. Not the situation, the feeling. And that was the first time I stopped looking at the surface. And I started paying attention to what was happening inside my body. Because here's what I began to notice. It wasn't just what was happening. It was how my body was constantly responding to that situation. That tightness in my chest, I had felt that before, not just in relationships, but in my childhood. In moments where I felt like I had to get it right. In moments where I didn't feel fully safe to just be myself. So when I got into situation as an adult, my body wasn't reacting to the present moment alone, My body was reacting to something it already knew back as a child. And this is where the repetition comes in. You see, my friend, it's not like life is trying to punish you. It's not like you're doing life wrong. No, far from it, my friend. It's that your system is moving in familiar ways. Because I'll tell you, familiarity feels safe, even when it doesn't feel good. Let me say that again in a real way. Just because something feels uncomfortable doesn't mean it's unfamiliar. I mean, you can feel anxious, unsure, overextended, and still be in something that feels known. So your system keeps recreating it, not because you want to suffer, but because it recognizes the pattern. Do you see, my friend? For me, I saw this show up in small, everyday moments too, like sending a text message. I used to overthink simple messages. I would type something, delete it, rewrite it, just trying to get it right. Not because the text message was that important, no, but because something in me did not feel safe being misunderstood. And at that time in my life, I didn't even realize that was a pattern. It just felt like, man, this is how I am, right? Or even something as simple as walking into a room. There were moments in my life I would walk into a room and immediately scan the room. In my brain is like, where do I fit in? Who is here? Not consciously, but automatically. That's what my body was doing. But the thing is, when you zoom out of that situation, you start to see it's not just one big pattern. It's made up of small, repeated moments over the years, right? So when you ask, why do the same situations keep repeating itself? It's often because the way you feel inside your body, inside the situation, hasn't changed yet. And I want to be very, very clear here. This is not about blaming yourself. This is not about saying it's all your fault. No. This is about noticing something very important. Change, real change, doesn't always start with doing something different. No. Sometimes it starts with feeling something different in the same situation. That's when real change happens. And that was a shift for me in my life. Instead of trying to fix every situation, I started paying attention to micro moments. For example, wake up in the morning and actually placing my feet on the floor slowly instead of rushing. Or when I felt that tightness in my chest, instead of distracting myself, I would actually pause, right? Not to fix it, not to label it, just to notice what was happening in real time. And I'll tell myself, okay, I'm feeling something right now in my chest. And I will sit with it, even if it's just for 30 seconds. And I'll be very honest with you, my friend. At first, this thing felt pointless because nothing dramatic changed instantly. But over time, remember, something subtle started shifting. That same situation would happen, but my response had a little more space. It wasn't perfect, just slightly different. And that's how patterns begin to loosen. Not in one big breakthrough moment, no, but in small interruptions. That's how you're losing the patterns showing up in your life. For me, I remember one other specific moment. I was about to send a message and I could feel myself going into the same overthinking loop. Like I could feel it. And instead of immediately responding, I put my phone down, I took a breath, and I asked myself, can I just respond simply? I will tell you this, my friend, it felt uncomfortable, almost like I was doing something wrong. But I sent the message anyways. And to my surprise, nothing bad happened. That small moment did not change my whole life. No, but it was a small break in the pattern. And those small breaks, they add up because your system starts to learn, oh, there's another way this can go. And slowly, the repetition starts to shift. Not because you forced yourself to be different, but because you created new experiences for your body. So if you're in that place right now where it feels like life keeps repeating itself, I want you to try something simple, my friend, right? The next time you notice that familiar feeling, not the situation, the feeling, right? I want you to pause for a moment, not to fix the feeling, not to logically analyze the feeling, just notice the feeling. And you can say to yourself, something in me feels familiar right now. That's it. That's the invitation. Something in me feels familiar right now. That's it. Because awareness in that moment that you did that, it's already a shift. And over time, those moments start to create space. And in that space, something new can begin to happen in your life. So maybe the question is not, why does this keep happening to me? No. But where does this feel familiar in my body? And what would it look like to respond just a little differently this time? Not perfectly, just slightly differently. Because, my friend, that's how you change those patterns in your life. Quietly, slowly, in moments most people overlook. And if you're noticing it, even just a little, you're already stepping out of the loop. Not all at once, but enough. That's the power of awareness and noticing. And for now, that's more than enough, my friend. As always, my friend, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. And I'm sending you so much love from my heart to yours. Thank you.